Senator Babet.
Thank you, President. Now, this week is a great week for common sense. Why is that? Because the Queensland Supreme Court has ruled that vaccine mandates imposed on police officers and health workers were indeed unlawful. Now, the judge ruled that the Queensland Police Commissioner had not properly considered the human rights of employees before she made receiving the jab a condition of their ongoing employment. I, of course, celebrated the Police Commissioner's decision to resign last week, now perhaps in anticipation of this landmark victory.
Taking you back to Brisbane, where the state's Police Commissioner, Katarina Carroll, has just announced her decision to leave the service. Her last day next Friday, March the 1st.
Now, the Supreme Court is right. Obviously, we all know that. How on earth did state premiers and chief health officers ever imagine that threatening and forcing people with loss of livelihood, if they did not submit to become the state's pin cushions to be injected with an experimental and untested concoction, of which the long-term effects are still not known, was not a breach of their basic human rights and was somehow okay? Well, you know what? It was not okay. It was a violation of one of a liberal society's most basic principles, bodily autonomy. And now that the Queensland Supreme Court has said as much, my hope is that the people who were adversely affected, whether through job loss or through adverse reactions to the experimental mRNA injection, will get justice. Now, an apology from the government would be a start, but compensation would be even better. Outrage. The outrage is that this court ruling would not have happened if it were not for the UAP from our founder, Clive Palmer, who personally funded this court case.
This class action was funded by Aussie legend Clive Palmer himself because your everyday ambos and police workers don't have the money, especially if they've been deprived of employment for quite some time, to fund this kind of legal action. So God bless Clive Palmer putting his money toward fighting this grave injustice.
Now, how can we claim to live in a free country when victims of government overreach have to fund their own search for justice? As well as opening the floodgates for compensation to those affected, the Queensland Supreme Court decision proves once again, as if proof was even needed in the first place, that there must be a royal commission into Australia's pandemic response. Now, Prime Minister's weak and toothless and frankly pathetic COVID inquiry is a disgrace. It is an insult to the millions of Australians whose basic civil rights were trashed by governments across our land. Now, people have died as a result of these draconian measures enforced by leaders during our pandemic. People have sustained lifelong injuries, lost their jobs, their marriages, lost relationships for good. Those in authority divided Australians and ignored human rights. The Prime Minister must give us our Royal Commission. State premiers, senior health officials, they need to explain on what basis they violated people's human rights, and depending on where the evidence leads, there should be and there must be prosecutions. We will never forget what happened in our country during the pandemic, and those who imposed draconian, authoritarian, tyrannical measures on the community absolutely must be held to account. Those of us who stood up for our human rights were marginalised, abused, bullies. We were told that we were grandma killers, told that we were less than human, that we were irresponsible. As long as a UAP has a presence in this place, we will never give up on justice for Australians who were emotionally bullied, financially crippled and physically harmed by the outrageous and frankly draconian pandemic response, which was not based in any science whatsoever. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. Yeah,